In the late 1990s, Pokémon cards emerged as one of the fastest-growing collectible crazes in history. The Pokémon trading card game launched in Japan in 1996 and made its way to North America in 1999. From the moment the first base set packs hit store shelves, they were met with unprecedented demand. The early days were marked by genuine, unplanned scarcity. Wizards of the Coast, which handled English-language printing and distribution at the time, underestimated how many packs children, collectors, and competitive players would buy. Base set, jungle, and fossil sold out quickly in many regions. Reprints followed, but even these struggled to meet the seemingly endless appetite for Pokémon cards. While reselling existed back then, it was mostly small scale, a few dollars over retail at a local card shop or schoolyard swaps where perceived rarity dictated trade value. The early 2000s brought the internet further into the resale picture. eBay allowed collectors and speculators to sell cards in sealed boxes worldwide. Some early collectors began holding on to sealed product, hoping values would rise over time. Legendary Collection and early EX-era boxes became long-term investments for a few forward-thinking buyers. Still, modern set availability remained steady. New expansions would often stay on shelves for months, and while some chase cards commanded high prices, scalping as we know it today, large-scale, coordinated purchasing purely for profit had yet to develop. A noticeable shift came during the Pokémon brand's 20th anniversary in 2016. The Pokémon Company International released the Generations expansion and a lineup of red and blue collection boxes featuring popular characters. Demand spiked beyond expectations. Some stores sold out within days, and prices online doubled or tripled. Pokémon Go's launch in the same year drew millions of lapsed fans back into the franchise. While most of the market still operated on normal supply and demand, resellers began to see the potential in limited-run products. By the late 20-teens, the stage was set for a massive change. Special sets like Hidden Fates, released in 2019, showcased what happened when hype and limited supply met an eager audience. The set's Shiny Vault subset, featuring shiny versions of popular Pokémon, drove intense interest. Hidden Fates Elite Trainer boxes, retailing for around $50, sold out quickly and resold online for $100 or more within weeks. Reprints eventually calmed prices, but the pattern was clear. Modern Pokémon products could be flipped for significant short-term profit if bought in bulk at release. The tipping point arrived in 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic dramatically altered consumer behavior. Lockdowns kept people at home. Stimulus payments put extra cash in some households, and nostalgia-driven hobbies flourished. Pokémon cards saw a massive resurgence, fueled by high-profile media coverage and social media trends. YouTuber Logan Paul famously purchased vintage first edition base set booster boxes for hundreds of thousands of dollars, opening them live to millions of viewers. This coverage drew mainstream attention to the Pokémon TCG and sent both vintage and modern prices soaring. News outlets picked up stories of rare card sales, further increasing demand. Scalpers moved in quickly. Modern releases like Champion's Path, Vivid Voltage, and especially Shining Fates sold out immediately at retail. Bots, automated programs designed to monitor restocks and complete online purchases faster than any human, became a primary tool. A well-configured bot could detect stock changes, add items to the cart, and check out in under a second. Meanwhile, in physical stores, organized buying groups coordinated sweeps, where members visited multiple locations in one day to clear stock. Some even paid others to purchase product for them, circumventing per-customer limits. The result for everyday buyers was frustration and scarcity. Parents trying to surprise their children with new packs found empty shelves. Casual collectors faced inflated secondary market prices, sometimes double or triple the MSRP. For example, during Shining Fate's initial release in early 2021, its Elite Trainer box, priced at $49.99, often sold for over $100 online within hours. Even standard Sword and Shield booster boxes, which typically retailed for about $100, were being resold for $150 to $200. Tensions sometimes spilled over into physical confrontations. In May 2021, a Target store in Brookfield, Wisconsin, suspended in-store Pokémon card sales after a fight in the parking lot involving 4 men. One man drew a gun during the altercation. No shots were fired, but the incident highlighted how volatile the situation had become. That same year, McDonald's ran a Pokémon Happy Meal promotion in the United States, featuring exclusive cards. Scalpers bought Happy Meals in bulk, sometimes dozens or even hundreds, to get the cards, leaving children and families empty-handed. Some McDonald's locations responded by implementing strict limits or ending the promotion early. International markets saw similar issues. In Japan, scalpers hired part-time workers to wait in line at Pokémon Center stores on release days. These hired buyers would purchase limited items and deliver them directly to scalpers for resale. In Singapore, Pokémon Center vending machines were installed to make products more accessible, but scalpers learned the restock schedules and arrived exactly at those times, buying as much as possible. The Pokémon Company responded by setting purchase limits and posting signage to discourage loitering. These events painted a clear picture. Pokémon scalping had evolved into an organized, profit-driven industry, impacting consumers worldwide. The Pokémon Company and retailers began implementing countermeasures to slow the trend. In some Pokémon Center locations, staff started removing shrink wrap from sealed booster boxes at the point of sale. This greatly reduced the resale value for scalpers, since factory-sealed status is crucial in the secondary market. For collectors intending to open the product, this change made no difference. In Japan, vending machines implemented cool-down periods between purchases and enforced strict per-person limits. In the United States, major retailers like Walmart, Best Buy, and Costco began limiting customers to 2 or 3 items per transaction in high-demand categories like trading cards. The official Pokémon Center online store added policies allowing them to cancel orders suspected of being bulk purchases. Independent game stores experimented with their own solutions. One UK shop charged more for sealed boxes, but offered a discount if the customer opened it in-store, making it unappealing for scalpers, but rewarding genuine collectors. The Pokémon Company also increased production runs for popular sets, issuing multiple reprint waves to bring more supply to market. Hidden Fates, Shining Fates, and Champion's Path all received reprints that eventually lowered secondary market prices. However, while these measures offered relief, they were not perfect. Removing shrink wrap only impacted in-person sales, purchase limits could be circumvented with multiple accounts or buyers, and reprints often took months to arrive, during which scalpers could still profit heavily. During the height of these shortages, market data showed dramatic price inflation. Vivid Voltage booster boxes with a $100 MSRP sold for over $200. Champion's Path Elite Trainer boxes, priced at $49.99, reached $150 due to their guaranteed Charizard promo card. Chase cards like the Shining Fates Charizard VMAX sold for more than $300 in the weeks after release, before falling as more supply reached the market. The community's response was loud and persistent. On Reddit's Pokémon TCG, users demanded stronger anti-scalping measures, including better online queue systems, verified buyer programs, and more even distribution to prevent large allocations going to a few resellers. On official Pokémon forums, fans requested advance notice of reprints to discourage panic buying and speculative hoarding. Other collectible markets offered cautionary parallels. Sports cards experienced similar surges, with in-store fights and thefts during restocks. Gaming consoles like the PlayStation 5 faced widespread scalping, with bots dominating online sales. The sneaker industry has battled organized reselling for decades. Pokémon's challenge was unique in its large base of young collectors, making negative headlines about fights, buyouts, and scalping particularly damaging to the brand's family-friendly image. By 2025, scalping had become a central concern for the Pokémon TCG community worldwide. Incidents like the Colma, California stabbing in July that year underscored the stakes. In that case, a man was struck with a mason jar, which shattered, and was stabbed multiple times with the glass during a dispute over Pokémon cards. He survived, but 2 suspects were arrested on felony charges. The fact that such violence could erupt over trading cards demonstrated the seriousness of the issue. These extreme incidents forced both retailers and the Pokémon Company to acknowledge that scalping was no longer a fringe problem. It had become a structural issue in the distribution chain. In some cases, the damage was already visible in player participation numbers. Local game stores that previously hosted weekly tournaments reported drops in attendance because competitive players could not obtain the cards needed to build current format decks without paying inflated prices. Newcomers to the hobby, especially families with children, often turned away entirely after facing repeated out-of-stock notices and price gouging online. One of the core challenges in combating scalping lies in how Pokémon products are distributed. For many sets, allocations are decided months before release, with stores receiving fixed quantities. If a large portion of this stock is purchased by resellers immediately, casual consumers have little chance of accessing product at retail. Online sales add another layer of complexity. Without strict anti-bot technology, restocks are often bought out in seconds. Even when online queues are implemented, sophisticated resellers can use multiple devices, IP addresses, or virtual private networks to gain an advantage over legitimate buyers. Retailer strategies have varied in effectiveness. Some chains adopted in-person lottery systems, where customers draw numbers for the chance to purchase limited items. This method, used in Japan's Pokémon centers, can prevent the first-come, first-served rush and give more people a fair chance, but it also requires additional staffing and security. Others have restricted sales to loyalty program members, theoretically making it harder for anonymous bulk buyers to clear stock. However, scalpers often adapt quickly, signing up for programs en masse or paying others to purchase on their behalf. The Pokémon Company has experimented with staggered releases and surprise restocks, aiming to make it harder for scalpers to predict when products will become available. While this can catch resellers off guard, it can also frustrate regular customers who cannot constantly monitor restock channels. Communication around these drops is often limited to avoid tipping off organized buyers, but the trade-off is reduced transparency for the broader community. The economics of scalping are driven by a mix of genuine scarcity and perceived scarcity. In some cases, products are truly limited, such as certain anniversary releases or region-exclusive promos. In others, scarcity is temporary, created by the delay between initial release and eventual reprints. Scalpers capitalize on this window, buying at MSRP and reselling during peak hype. The narrower the reprint gap, the less profitable the flip becomes. This is why sets like Hidden Fates, despite huge initial markups, saw prices normalize after multiple reprint waves. Market data reveals patterns that scalpers exploit. Products tied to fan-favorite Pokémon, particularly Charizard, Evolutions, and Pikachu, consistently perform above average in resale value. Sets containing high-rarity alternate art cards also attract heavy speculation. Scalpers will often monitor pre-release leaks and early opening videos to assess which products are most likely to yield profitable singles. This anticipation allows them to prioritize certain SKUs before the public is even fully aware of the set's content. International shipping and currency exchange can further influence scalper behavior. For example, Japanese Pokémon products are often printed in smaller quantities per release wave than English counterparts, making them more vulnerable to buyouts. Resellers who can source directly from Japanese retailers or intermediaries may import and flip these items to overseas buyers at a significant markup. The reverse is also true. English-exclusive promos sometimes fetch high prices in Japan, incentivizing scalpers to export. Countermeasures in Japan have sometimes been more aggressive than in other regions. Some Pokémon Center stores require photo ID for purchases of high-demand items, with details recorded to prevent multiple buys across locations. Staff have been known to stamp the inside of product packaging to indicate it was purchased at retail, reducing its value to those seeking pristine, untouched items. These tactics have had mixed reactions. Collectors who open their purchases are unaffected, but investors and sealed collectors view it as damage. The broader collectible market provides useful context. Scalping thrives in environments where supply is limited, demand is high, and distribution channels are predictable. Sneakers, game consoles, and limited edition merchandise all exhibit the same vulnerability. In each case, solutions require both supply-side adjustments and consumer behavior changes. If buyers resist paying inflated prices, scalper profits shrink. However, fear of missing out often overrides patience, and many collectors justify overpaying with the assumption that values will only rise. Within the Pokémon community, grassroots efforts have emerged to counter scalping. Some local groups organize fair trade meetups, where participants agree not to resell to one another at inflated prices. Online, certain Discord servers and Facebook groups dedicate themselves to MSRP-only sales and giveaways, with strict bans on members found scalping. These initiatives rely heavily on trust and enforcement, but they foster goodwill and community engagement. Education has also become a key tool. Content creators, from small YouTubers to established influencers, have started producing videos explaining how reprints work, why certain products are less urgent to buy on release, and how to spot artificial scarcity. By equipping consumers with better information, these creators hope to reduce the panic buying that fuels scalper profits. Some go further, publicly calling out known scalpers or exposing bot networks, though this can be controversial and sometimes risks harassment. Despite all efforts, scalping remains resilient because it is fundamentally tied to profit opportunities. As long as there is a gap between retail price and willing to pay market price, someone will try to exploit it. What can change is the size of that gap and the ease with which it can be exploited. Consistent enforcement of purchase limits, faster reprints, and anti-bot technology can all compress the scalping window to the point where it is no longer worth the time and effort for most opportunists. The challenge is maintaining these measures over time. Many anti-scalping policies are implemented reactively in response to a high-profile incident or sudden shortage. Once supply improves and headlines fade, some retailers relax restrictions, only for the cycle to repeat with the next high-demand release. A long-term, proactive approach requires coordination between manufacturers, distributors, and retailers, something that has historically been difficult to achieve across a global franchise like Pokémon. From an economic standpoint, the Pokémon Company faces a balancing act. Overprinting to eliminate scarcity can devalue products and hurt retailer relationships, while underprinting fuels scalping and alienates the customer base. The company's recent trend toward multiple staggered reprint waves appears to be a compromise, allowing initial hype-driven sales while ensuring that patient buyers can eventually access products at MSRP. Whether this model will hold against increasingly sophisticated scalper tactics remains to be seen. The future of anti-scalping efforts may involve more direct-to-consumer sales with built-in verification. Some collectors have suggested systems where purchases are tied to a customer's Pokémon Trainer Club account, limiting the number of units that can be bought per set across all retailers. Others propose integrating unique QR codes or serial numbers into packaging that can be tracked, discouraging bulk reselling. While these ideas present logistical and privacy challenges, they reflect the community's willingness to consider unconventional solutions. Ultimately, the battle against scalping is about preserving the accessibility and enjoyment of the hobby. Pokémon cards have endured for nearly 3 decades because they offer something for everyone. From children ripping open their first booster pack to veteran collectors chasing elusive alternate arts, scalping distorts that experience, replacing excitement with frustration and exclusion. Every measure that shifts product from the hands of resellers to the hands of genuine fans strengthens the community as a whole. As of 2025, the conversation continues, with no single solution universally agreed upon. What is clear is that without sustained effort from all sides, producers, sellers, and buyers, the cycle will repeat. The incidents of recent years, from the armed confrontation in Wisconsin to the stabbing in California, serve as stark reminders of how a joyful pastime can be undermined when profit is prioritized above all else. Whether the Pokémon Company and its partners can maintain the momentum of recent anti-scalping policies will shape the accessibility of the hobby for years to come. Some of the most telling examples of how scalping shapes the Pokémon market come from tracking individual product life cycles. Take Shining Fates in early 2021. The initial release wave vanished within hours in most regions, driven in part by the inclusion of the shiny Charizard V Max. secondary market listings for the Elite Trainer box surged to well over double MSRP. Over the following months, reprints began to arrive, first in small quantities, then in larger waves. Each restock brought prices down incrementally, and by the time the third major reprint hit, those same boxes could be found near or even below retail. This price trajectory illustrates a fundamental point. Scalper profits thrive in the gap between release and restock. The shorter that gap, the less lucrative the flip. A similar pattern unfolded with celebrations in late 2021, the special set marking Pokémon's 25th anniversary. Products like the Ultra Premium Collection, featuring a gold-plated Pikachu and Pokeball, became the centerpiece of scalper attention. Retailing at $119.99, these collections were resold for $400 or more in the weeks after release. Supply was initially so tight that many collectors never saw one in stores. Eventually, additional waves reduced prices, but not before thousands of units changed hands at inflated rates. For some buyers, paying the markup felt justified to guarantee ownership of what was perceived as a once-in-a-lifetime collectible. Scalpers count on this sense of urgency. International markets saw their own flashpoints. In Australia, pre-orders for high-demand sets regularly sold out within minutes of going live, often at odd hours of the night to match global release coordination. Reports of automated purchasing and insider allocation deals circulated among collectors. In the UK, the introduction of Pokémon Center online sales brought hope for direct access, but early drops were plagued by website crashes and instant sellouts, with many products reappearing on secondary markets within hours. Scalping has also altered the behavior of some legitimate buyers. Fearing they may miss out, even non-scalper collectors sometimes overbuy, purchasing more than they need as a hedge against scarcity. This panic buying effect inadvertently fuels the very shortages it is meant to avoid, creating a feedback loop that benefits scalpers. Retailers, seeing products sell out instantly, may misinterpret demand as being far higher than it truly is among end consumers, further complicating production planning. The rise of grading services like PSA, Beckett, and CGC has also intersected with scalping trends. High-grade cards, especially from new sets, can fetch multiples of their raw card value. Scalpers who secure large quantities of product early can send promising pulls for grading and capitalize on being first to market with high-grade copies. This practice can inflate singles prices in the early weeks after a set's release, adding another layer of accessibility issues for competitive players who need specific cards. Some retailers and distributors have begun experimenting with anti-bot technologies, such as requiring capture verification, using randomized drop times, or implementing purchase queues tied to verified accounts. While these measures have seen success in other industries, determined scalpers often find ways around them, whether through more sophisticated bots or by employing human operators in lower-wage regions to manually complete checkouts. One particularly aggressive approach has been the removal of collectability features at the point of sale. Certain Japanese retailers have been known to cut or mark product packaging in subtle but visible ways, making it less appealing to sealed collectors while leaving the contents intact for players. While effective in discouraging resale, these measures have sparked debates over whether they harm legitimate collectors who value pristine packaging for personal enjoyment rather than profit. Long-term solutions may require industry-wide coordination. If manufacturers, distributors, and retailers share data on buying patterns, they can identify suspicious activity more effectively. For example, accounts or payment methods consistently purchasing maximum allowed quantities across multiple locations could be flagged. However, implementing such systems raises privacy and logistical concerns, and it's unclear whether the Pokémon Company, operating through multiple independent retail partners worldwide, could achieve this level of oversight. Some community members advocate for embracing scarcity as a natural part of the hobby, arguing that not every product should be easily available and that high secondary prices are an inevitable consequence of collector demand. Others counter that Pokémon's core audience, children and families, is poorly served by a market dominated by speculative reselling. The truth likely lies between these positions. Certain premium items will always command higher prices, but everyday sets should remain broadly accessible. One promising trend is the Pokémon Company's increased use of made-to-order products for specific high-demand items. By allowing fans to place orders during a set window and then producing exactly that quantity, they remove the advantage scalpers have in buying up limited stock. This approach has been used successfully for merchandise and could be expanded to select TCG products. While it eliminates scarcity, it does require patience from buyers, as production and shipping timelines can stretch for months. Education will remain a critical part of the fight. Collectors who understand the cycles of hype and reprints are less likely to overpay in panic. By normalizing patience and promoting MSRP-focused communities, the player base can erode the profitability of scalping. The internet has given collectors unprecedented access to information. Using that access strategically can shift the balance of power away from resellers. The stakes for the Pokémon brand are significant. While scalping alone is unlikely to collapse the hobby, prolonged inaccessibility risks alienating future generations of players and collectors. The franchise's longevity depends on a constant influx of new participants, many of whom begin their journey with a casual pack purchase. If that entry point is consistently blocked by inflated prices and empty shelves, the long-term health of the market could suffer. In reflecting on the past decade, it is clear that scalping is not a temporary nuisance, but an ongoing challenge. It evolves with technology, adapts to countermeasures, and thrives wherever supply and demand are out of balance. The incidents of violence, the frustration of collectors, and the erosion of community trust all point to the need for continued vigilance. The Pokémon Company's recent steps, increased print runs, shrink wrap removal, purchase limits, and strategic reprints, have shown that intervention can work, but only if maintained and refined over time. As 2025 continues, collectors and players alike watch closely for the next wave of releases and the measures that will accompany them. The lessons of the past few years are fresh. Unchecked scalping can turn joy into frustration, community into competition, and accessibility into privilege. The challenge now is ensuring that the passion driving the Pokémon TCG remains rooted in shared excitement rather than divided by profit motives. If the brand stewards and its community can hold that line, the future of Pokémon cards can remain bright. Not just for those who can afford to pay the most, but for everyone who loves the game.